Hi, my name's Ben. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm on the social teams of the Football vs. Homophobia youth panel.
Hi, yeah, I'm Natalie Washington. Pronouns are she and her. I'm campaign lead for Football v Transphobia, and I play football for Rushmore in the Hampshire County Women's League.
Hello, my name's Casey, pronouns are they, them, and I'm apparently known for playing football at a very mediocre level for Soho Football Club in the London Unity League.
Yeah. I like to imagine that this is a concerned person, like whose parent has just come out, frantically googling it, thinking like, "Oh, is the trans going to come for me?"
Personally, I don't really have any experience in that. Out of my family, I'm currently the only person who's come out. But I'm not going to say no because I don't have an answer.
If you're in an environment where you're encouraged to think about gender and your identity more critically and more evaluate it more, then maybe it would encourage more people to be like, oh, this is a different thing. But that's more of a nurture thing than a nature thing. That's there's a trans gene that gets inherited. Which, yeah, I'm also not a doctor, but I feel like that is probably not true. Ooh, that's a fun one. I guess the serious answer is animals probably don't have the brains to conceptualize gender because they're kind of dumb, and they're much like me in lockdown. They're kind of operating on the where is my next meal coming from, when am I next going to sleep kind of thought process. There's nothing beyond that.
The animal uprising is coming for you.
But I guess the flip side to that is that there are gay penguins. So maybe if we, I don't know, set up a controlled environment where we introduced gender identity to a bunch of penguins, some of them would come out. But
wasn't there that David Attenborough documentary that had that fish that could have a quote unquote sex change? Am I imagining that? Did I dream that?
But there's you do get gender diversity and whether it's fish or worms have don't have binary genders. I think I'm not an expert on worms. Don't ask me for any greater detail.
I assume it refers to parts in a play.
Yes. Yeah. No, I was going to assume it referred to the funky coloured hair and odd lipstick that all non-binary people have to have as part of the...
Oh, yes, the uniform that is issued.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I guess, again, the serious answer would be no, because I guess there's the confusion between the transness being a social, personal thing versus the physiological bits that one has. They kind of they operate on different levels, yet are often clumped together into the same thing because nuance is dead in 2020.
Assumes that other cis people's parts look the same, and that there's this kind of standard issue part. Unless he's talking about transit vans or something, but people look different anyway. So therefore, the answer is both yes and no, and maybe, which I'm sure is what the person that typed that in was looking for.
I'm now a big fan of the extended metaphor that cis people are identical transit vans mass-produced, whereas trans and gender non-conforming people are like aftermarket modded vehicles that are horribly unsafe yet very cool at the same time.
The two true genders, short wheelbase and long wheelbase.
Yeah. I guess I'm on a serious point. I'm not really equipped to answer this because I don't know anything about Hinduism, so
And then neither do I. I'm a bit surprised that's the first like search.
Yeah.
Like it makes me think, like, are there a lot of trans or people who are questioning their gender identity who are Hindus and are like, is this a thing? To which I would say gender and religion are probably different things that can, like, don't necessarily have an impact on one another. And I guess, Natalie, this is on you. What's the trans agenda? Let us know your secrets. What did they discuss at the secret club meetings?
I feared it would come to this. Look, I mean, I can't tell you all of the details because obviously a lot of it's classified. But I mean, you know, really, it's all. I mean, aside from world domination, all the usual boring stuff. I mean, kind of everybody has that. It's really just the total destruction of the Western world and everything that we've all come to know and love. And I think, you know, a lot of nonsense is said about how, you know, trans people are destroying our understanding of gender and sexuality and so on, and it's all completely true. You know, that's the idea. But I don't know. You could take this lots of different ways. Like, what is transgender women's aim? Like, are we good at aiming? Which you could take again. I mean, anyone who's watched me play football this season, you were going somewhere else there, I know, which is why I gave you that little one. If you watch me play football this season, it's not very good. So what I should say is what our actual aim is really just to, and I can only speak for myself, but really just to get on with our lives. It's just kind of like recognition of who we are, acceptance of who we are, access to healthcare, access to the things that everybody else gets without too much in the way of gatekeeping, preferably none, but you know.
Right. I don't think there obviously isn't an age limit, but if they're talking about like medically transitioning, it's like 18 in the UK. So that might be what they're after. Yeah, because you certainly can't get any surgical procedure. You can't even be referred for a surgical procedure, if I'm right in thinking, until you're 18, which means you probably won't get it until you're probably 20, 19, 20. I think you can start HRT at like younger, but that's only like really rare cases.
I think 14. I think 14 is the earliest you can get prescribed any sort of probably like low dose testosterone blocker or you know, puberty blocker, I guess.
I had a little bit of trouble with this one just because for some reason Google doesn't recognise the word trans particularly well. It only recognises transgender. Well, what the solution apparently was to go on Bing. So, you know,
first time ever the solution has been to go on Bing.
Yeah. So if there's ever an advert for Bing, it's more trans friendly. So I'll say that. So the first
prior to that, we were non-bingery. And sorry.
I do like the idea that maybe this is the trans agenda. We want people to use Bing, the most insidious project of them all.
I mean, has anyone got any seeds on them? What that means? Wait, no, how? No, I don't mean like that.
I wondered how we were going to make it into an agricultural joke.
All my jokes are agricultural.
I mean, as someone who doesn't have, but no, as someone who doesn't have kids, I guess I don't know. But if not, I would assume that's not because of the trans thing. That's the whole other, you know, kettle of seeds, if you will.
But obviously, if people have some surgery, then they may not be. But it depends what surgery they have, and it depends. You know, they may choose to have some fertility procedures beforehand. So it's a complex picture. It would be the sensible answer, I think. Well, there's only one person to ask here.
Are they? Yeah.
And clearly, I am the age where I have all the knowledge on this. Right, because 20-year-olds are allowed in just all these places. I mean, I actually generally don't know, but like also trans men are men, so I would assume yes.
I'm intrigued as to whether they mean, when they say gentlemen's clubs, I'm intrigued as to whether they mean clubs that people go to look at naked people, or do they mean Victorian smoky clubs in central London where people go to have wages as to whether they can go around the world in 80 days?
Yes.
They're two different sorts of gentlemen's clubs.
That's
Although
true.
I'm sure there's a lot of parallels. But
Yes.
because on both, well, I actually imagine the former is probably more likely to be inclusive than the latter.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, yeah, anyone sort of involved in the looking at naked people industry or pastime, for want of better words, tend to be quite, open about all of this kind of thing and quite inclusive. Whereas, Phileas Fogg and co. may look more dimly upon such diversity.
Oh, no.
And the answer would be clearly no, because Natalie missed 3 shots.
Yeah,
After the game, so maybe not.
no. The official party line is no, because if we say anything other than we're terrible, then we'll be banned.
Right, yeah, of course.
I do like a tweet you had a while ago, Natalie, about, I hope I'm not throwing you under the bus here by dredging up the score lines of your recent games, but you were tweeting that you'd lost a game 12-0 or something, and were it not for the bone density, you'd have lost 22-0, which I thought was very funny and deserves a spot in the Trans Sports Hall of Fame.
It's also quite interesting because it's kind of assuming that, like, if trans women are men, then like all men are good at football.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what's driving at it. Like, it's just like, there's always like, men equals footballers, women equals not footballers, and therefore all men, this class of all men is always better than this class of all women at football, and that's what drives this. So irrespective of whether you think trans women are women, or whether you think trans women are men, or whether you think trans women are something else, people still have this sexist idea that all men are better at physical or sports than all women, which is demonstrably not true.
The fact that even on the second one, it also corrects non-binary to add the...
Yeah, I had a bit, that was a bit irritating on my part, because I was trying to find a way of it not doing that, but for some reason, I mean, Google seems to just explode whenever I type in the word non-binary, so kind of just got to work with that.
As it should, because we've established trans people want to use Bing.
Yeah.
The wrong search engine. Yeah, I mean, if you break your leg, you're probably going to have some kind of procedure to fix it. I assume it's asking about the surgery, capital T, capital S, as it's unknown. And I guess it depends on the person in particular, because this is, I imagine I'm going to say this for all of these questions, but non-binariness is like a really unhelpfully broad like umbrella referring to like an untold number of gender identities within it. And like the way that I first came across the term non-binary and decided to use it for myself was when I found a Tumblr master post of genders about 5 years ago, where there were literally hundreds of sort of genres of non-binary within it. I was like, oh Lord, I'm gonna have to do some homework here. But I guess the point, the answer would be, if like surgery or any kind of medical procedure is appropriate to you, like, yes, you can. For me, I don't want any of that for myself, but I'm not representative of all of the non-binary people, because there's a whole range of identities and people within that.
But there is this idea, isn't there, that like if you're trans or non-binary, then any medical interaction suddenly then becomes about your gender identity, doesn't it? So to your point about, you know, if you break your arm and you need some surgery, then yes, non-binary people can get surgery, and yes, obviously they can. But actually, I'm sure some people encounter some sort of weird resistance when that goes on. Oh, well, you know, maybe, like if there's someone that takes hormones, for example, they might be like, well, maybe you should stop taking your hormones because of this. And it's like, well, actually, it doesn't really make any difference. Or maybe it'll be like, oh, well, we need to think about this for a minute because we're not sure what ward to put you on, and all this kind of nonsense, which barriers that emerge for people having surgery. But yeah, I mean, non-binary people can, like any other trans people, eventually, after a lot of gatekeeping, get some surgery, some trans-related surgery if they want it. And that's completely valid, like it would be for anyone else.
You make a good point about the sort of gatekeeping emerging as it goes on, because the kind of the non-binary experience, at least in my experience, is encountering a bunch of like random hurdles and hoops to jump through in real time for things that you never thought you would have to jump through. Like I got a package delivered recently and I had to sign up to like a new kind of like delivery service. Like it wasn't Hermes or anyone else, it was like a new one. You know, you fill in your name, address, whatever, but you had a title box to fill in, and of course the only titles were Mr., Mrs., Miss and Ms. And I'm like shut up. You know, I just want to like order like this stupid shirt that I found on Redbubble because it's funny, and yet you are creating like this stupid obstacle for me. And I guess when it comes to things that are like more serious and important, like medical procedures, yeah, you're right. You know, if there are like, oh look, here's the, you know, the ward where we put all the women, here's the ward where we put all the men, and here's like a little, you know, cupboard in the corner where we stuff all the non-binary people. It's like, it just highlights all of the stupid and arbitrariness of a lot of those practices and processes. So first of all, non-binary is an adjective. Good Googler. You've got to put the people in there. I should have figured it out the first time. And the other answer is like, your question reveals that you are not following me on Instagram. And I would say that that is the biggest issue here. It's KC2_ Casey. Make sure you get the 2 underscores in, it's the brand. But yeah, it's like, you know, yeah, shut up. Yeah, of course. You know, it's the old, when I first came out, right, my, the thing that really kind of like unlocked my like thinking about this whole thing was the idea of like a 3-tiered approach to gender and matters pertaining to gender, which I don't know if is always accurate, but has always helped me in terms of like separating all of these ideas, because a lot of these ideas are like separate ideas, right? They just get clumped in together because nuance is dead. And you've got like your physical sort of, you know, body, for want of a better term, on sort of one level, and then you've got like your gender identity on another level, and then you've got like indications of gender or presentations of gender on the third level, or whatever it's called, and they're all very independent of each other. Drum roll. Yeah. Clearly the answer is no, because the sharks can smell gender identity and they're like really aggressively conservative on it. So they're like, oh, there's a non-binary person who might eat their face. Yeah. Who's asking this?
Sharks are famously conservative, famously binarist.
Yes.
Who is asking this, man? Like...
The S in HBS that everyone thinks stands for Harry Benjamin syndrome actually stands for Harry Benjamin sharks, and it's very much about a medicalist approach to transgender identity. And sharks will not accept. Where the irony of me holding scissors? Sharks will not accept non-binary people, so therefore, no.
But it's, I guess the question maybe, if it to sort of consider it seriously, would be that kind of like the medical approach where it's like, you know, hey, I've had XYZ surgery.
I'm going to stop you there because you're approaching this question seriously, which I think is your first mistake.
Well, yeah.
Carry on. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Unless it was a non-binary person who wasn't sure whether they would be allowed to scuba dive because, to our previous conversation, a lot of like sign up forms and stuff are very, very binary, and maybe they couldn't. Maybe they couldn't sign up.
Hi, this is Sam from the Football vs Homophobia youth panel. Now, in editing this video, I have realised that there's not really a definitive end or outro. I didn't record any kind of outro with the participants, the stars of the video. So I kind of had to stop on here to kind of give you some kind of outro. Basically, it's something new we're trying here at the youth panel. So drop a like, share it around, subscribe, definitely subscribe, and also go follow all of those wonderful people on their various social media pages. All of that will be down in the description below. But until then, I will see you next time.